Hey, welcome back. So, yeah, it's been a week since that date thing. That's what I'm going to talk about. Obviously, I went to Thanksgiving this week. That was fine. But I'm probably, from now until the end of time, this is probably going to be mostly what I'm going to talk about. I don't know, I guess with Thanksgiving, I went back home to see my family, and I'm still a little bummed that, all the progress I've made, it doesn't really translate to family stuff. They used to bother me a lot more, but now, what the therapist told me, it's kind of okay because you have this positive baggage, which is a new concept for me. Because I always thought my parents are perfect and they're nice to me, so I should be able to talk to them. But there's this positive baggage thing where I care so much about what they think of me that I put extra stress on everything I say. So it's okay to want to start with make a friend first or a girlfriend or whatever. You can start with that, and then you can try to be more comfortable around your family, and that's okay. I always thought it was the other way around, but obviously it could be the other way. I was a little bit embarrassed about how much I cried last week, but I liked how interesting it was. Watching it back, I'm well, this is interesting, even if it's embarrassing. This video is not going to be that interesting because I'm fine now, I guess. I still, it's quiet in here. I know there's people upstairs. Come on. I'm gonna, yeah. Okay, this helps. I'm gonna wear these headphones because the people upstairs are there this week. I know they're there, so I'm being kind of quieter. But I feel wearing these are noise canceling headphones, so it's helping. I don't know. It's kind of embarrassing. But that's it. I mean, every week is embarrassing. Last week was, so whatever. I feel like an idiot. Okay. But it is helping. Why, though? It doesn't make any sense. Why can't I talk loud in my apartment still? It's so weird. It's annoying. Okay, so after the coffee date last week, I felt pretty weird. And you saw, I'm glad that I recorded right after because that was the most intense feeling. And a couple people commented. Gladys commented. That was cool. And of course, Vault. And they were being very nice and supportive, which was really nice. They were more, I don't know, I feel obviously I kind of came across more sad than I actually was last week. I was sad, but I wanted it to come across all the emotions I'm feeling are creating this weird feeling. It's not just sadness. It's oh, I'm happy that I did this thing, and it's just a weird feeling. I'm not just oh, I'm sad because this girl said friend zone, and I don't like the friend zone. That wasn't really, I didn't want it to come across that way. I wasn't sad. I kind of realized a couple days ago why I was sad. I didn't mention it last week. I was sad because I kind of developed this relationship with this girl online, talking to her, and it was nice. We were talking and we were joking. And we did it for a week, and then she was oh, I don't think I'm going to talk. And then she came back for a week. So it was 2 weeks of talking, and I was oh, I really like this. And now it's kind of over. I mean, we can still be friends, but what does that even mean? Am I gonna I can't like text her the same way, and I can't be like, hey, you want to go to a movie or something. It sounds so stupid. um, but yeah, that's part of why I was sad, and sadness was part of all the emotions I was feeling. But it's, I don't know. Yeah, it's like it's part of the niceness is like just being normal. Like, these are the normal things that people experience. Like, now she's just somebody that I used to know. Everybody goes through this, and that's part of the nice thing. I'm like, oh, I'm like normal now. I'm experiencing what I'm supposed to be experiencing. When you have social anxiety, you kind of feel like, even though most of the time like, oh, like other people have social anxiety too, but there's a part of you that feels like, oh, this is wrong. There's something wrong. Like, I can use the analogy of like exercising, because it's like, when you're exercising, there's two different kinds of pain. There's like good pain of like, oh, my muscles are sore. And then there's bad pain of like, oh, my knee really hurts. So the social anxiety stuff is like kind of like knee pain, where you're like, that's not good for me, and this is just like really hurting and bad, and there's no good can come out of this. But like when your muscles are sore, you're like, oh, it's good. So that's kind of like the normal stuff of like, oh, you went to coffee with this girl and she said, let's be friends. That's like a normal pain of like, oh, that's good. But I think the best thing for me, I messaged her once after the date. I was like, we talked for like a couple little back and forth, and then that was it. And so I'm like, okay, I mean, if I can think of something to do as friends, I'll message her. And if she wants to message me, obviously I'll talk to her and we'll talk. But other than that, like, if she wants to message me, okay, but I just have to move on, kind of. I think that's the best thing to do, right? Is to just, yeah. Because sometimes I'll have thoughts about like, oh, I should talk to her about Harry Potter or something, because I started reading Harry Potter because of her, and I finished the first book. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm going to talk to her about Harry Potter. It would just be weird, I think so. If she wants to talk and like we find some kind of a friend rhythm, then I can do that. But it's just a weird thing. I mean, yeah, I just thought about like this whole dating thing is going to be the hardest thing I ever do, which isn't saying that much, but just figuring all this stuff out is, and just like realizing that there's another person involved and their comfort and their feelings, and taking that into account. I can barely even take into account my own feelings, so it's going to be a lot of work. But I want to do everything the right way. So every week I'll come back here and I'll tell you how I'm doing, I guess. Hopefully I could take the headphones off eventually. Is it weird? Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. Yeah, today's not going to be interesting. I just drove home today for 4 hours, so I don't know. There's no plan ever, just talk. Hopefully next week I'll have a date or something to talk about. I liked my moon analogy from last week. So it's really important that I understand that, like, this is something that I want. I just realized I wanted it, and it seems weird to want this because I never wanted it before. But that's because I distanced myself from it. Like, my moon analogy is pretty good. The whole idea of, like, someone comes to you and they're like, hey, Neil Armstrong's like, hey, I just walked on the moon and it was so cool. Like, you got to try it sometime. Obviously, your reaction is going to be like, well, it's so distant from me. I'm not even going to worry about it. Like, I'm not going to feel bad about not walking on the moon. That's the same way I felt about relationships and dating and stuff. Like, it's so distant from me, I'm not even going to think about it. So it never bothered me that I wasn't with anybody because I was on Earth. And I was like, it's never going to happen. But now that I did this date I feel like, I think his name is Stephen Collins, the third guy who went to the moon, but he didn't actually land on the moon. So now I'm like, I'm like looking at Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, and they're like playing golf on the moon, and they're in the buggy driving around, and they're having so much fun. And I'm like, I see what I'm missing now, and that's why it hurts to, like, this past week, I felt ache. I don't think I felt like heartache, but I felt like ennui or something. I don't know. I felt something like, ugh, something's not right. You are missing something. You're missing out on something. This past week, I was thinking like, oh, I'm so sad that like I don't have a partner or somebody to talk to about stuff. And I'm like, really? You never cared about that before. What's changed? Obviously, you went to the moon, but you didn't land on the moon. That's what you want. I don't know. If you talk to Stephen Collins, he'd probably be like, oh, I did my job. But if you really asked him, he would be like, of course, I wanted to walk on the moon, but like it wasn't my job. So like, I'm Stephen Collins right now, and I'm like, of course, obviously, I want to be there. I want to go all the way. I don't want to just do a date and be like, oh, that was nice. So this thing that I'm feeling is like, you want it. You wanted it, and you always wanted it, but you were just never close enough to know. And now I know. I definitely want to be with somebody. I feel like it takes a lot to admit that, doesn't it? Like, that's something that's kind of vulnerable to admit. I don't need to be with anybody, but I want to. That's an important thing to note, is like, you shouldn't feel like you need to be with somebody, but it's okay to want to be with somebody, and that's what I do. I'll be okay by myself. Maybe I could try to find friends or something, but I really want to be with somebody, and I don't think I realized that before. I close myself off because of that moon analogy. Just like, I don't want to even think about it because it's so distant. But now it's not very distant. I mean, I went on a date. That's what you do, right? The next thing is to just be like, you go on 5 or 10 dates and then you have a girlfriend. That's it. That's how it works. The second part of this video is going to be talking about this eHarmony person. I didn't really talk about her too much, but I'm talking to somebody else on eHarmony, and it's a new situation where we did a video call. She's a good person, but it comes back to that thing that I mentioned last week of like that extra thing. I don't know if I'm feeling that extra thing of like, she lives far away, and dating somebody takes a big commitment. Like, am I going to be willing to start that commitment? Do I feel comfortable, like, okay, this is the person that I want to do it with, I want to be in a relationship with, that I want to subject myself to all these emotions that I know I'm going to feel? Or should I just be like, okay, like, we could talk if you want, we could be friends, but I don't think dating is a good thing for me right now or something. I kind of have to decide that, because the next thing is probably to meet her. We did 2 video calls already, but she lives far away, so that's part of it, is like, if we're going to start dating, it's going to be a big commitment because she lives far away. I think in my head, like, well, maybe you should meet her once before you decide that you don't want to, especially because you got nothing else going on. I don't know. What do you think? Vault, are you watching? What do you think I should do with her? Okay, here's the story. I talked to this girl in eHarmony twice. We did 2 video calls. She's very nice. She seems to like me. I like her. But I don't know if I if I like her. But I don't know. I'm trying to think of like, well, what don't you like about her? What's turning you off from her? And I can't really think of anything. So I'm like, what is it? Is it just like, well, she's not... Is there something wrong with me or like how I'm processing it? Maybe I don't know. Would I just immediately know? Like, okay, Val, you don't have to answer this question, but like with your wife, did you immediately... What did you feel? Did you feel something extra instead of just like, oh, I really like her and she's cool and smart? Did you feel like an extra thing? If that's what I'm supposed to be feeling. Do you think I can get that from a video call, or would I have to meet them in person? And if I do want to like kind of break it off, I have to decide how to do that. Like, I messaged her a bunch already, so I'm just gonna wait for her to message me back. I'm not gonna ghost. I'll never ghost anybody. That's horrible. I don't want to do that. I'll talk to her and just be honest. I think the key is obviously to be honest, but to not just, I don't know, just don't make a big deal about it. Just be like, don't be so honest that you're like, oh, I met this Tinder girl and I kind of liked her more than you, so I don't really like you, and so let's never meet again. Obviously, don't do that. And that's not really true, but if that was true, don't do that. Just be like, hey, I don't know if it's like gonna work, like you're kind of far away, and I just don't feel like maybe we can pursue this, or I don't know, something like that. But I like to be friends. I'm gonna. It was interesting though. I guess I'll end here. Or I don't know. It was interesting though that after I got turned down by the girl last week, like the friend zone thing, I did kind of like the eHarmony girl more because I'm like, oh, this person actually likes me. But that feels kind of dangerous too, right? You would like anybody in that kind of vulnerable state who liked you, because you're really vulnerable and you're like, oh, nobody likes me, and this girl, like, she doesn't like me, but this girl does. So then you'd be more willing to just like cling to her, but it would be just kind of a superficial thing. It wouldn't be a real connection. It would just be like, I'll take anything right now. Anybody who says they like me, because I kind of got hurt. A little extra thing. I created a Match.com profile, and they give you 4,000 characters. So I started writing. It's a rough draft, but I wrote this really long story. So I'll read it here and I'll tell you. You can give me notes. Vault, right? You're a writer. Tell me if you like this story. Okay, in the beginning, I just wrote some stuff about like, oh, I want to meet somebody, blah blah blah, and then I'm like, okay. 4,000 characters is a lot of characters. I might as well get my money's worth. Okay, here's my life story. So I'm going to read you what I wrote. It's a very rough draft. I did it like a half an hour, so I still got to work on it. But I liked writing this. I was having fun, and I want to write. Okay. So Anthony comes from humble beginnings. He was born to an empathetic school teacher and a hardworking salesman in a small suburban town in New Jersey with 2 older brothers. His life was a normal life full of friends and love. As a kid, he enjoyed playing video games and soccer with his friends and watching cartoons. When he got older, he focused more on his schoolwork and graduated from New Jersey's best public university. Okay, I don't know if this joke is going to land, but I think it's a pretty funny joke because Rutgers. Oh, I didn't say Rutgers. from New Jersey's best public, and I put public like in parentheses and made it a really small font because obviously New Jersey's best universities like Princeton or something. But I thought that's a funny joke, but I don't know if anybody's going to get that. Okay, the next part. The good life didn't stop there. Right out of college, he got a great job working for one of New Jersey's best manufacturing companies. I don't know if I like that. Yes, at this time it was all looking pretty good for Anthony, but not everything was as picturesque as it seemed on the outside. Over time, his new boss and job made him feel like he was worthless, which exacerbated a dormant anxiety issue. These were dark times full of pity and self-doubt. Or self-pity and doubt. I need a better transition here, but this may have turned out to actually be a blessing in disguise as it forced him to examine his life for maybe the first time. He noticed through therapy that his core problem was that maybe he wasn't living his life for himself, but for others and their expectations of him. That's when his life really began to turn around, and he moved to a new town, started a new job which respected him, and he felt comfortable in. He then used his newfound confidence to meet the love of his life on Match.com. This was before the website was bought by Disney Megacorp. Okay, I need a better transition here, but this is the turn of this. This was before the website was bought by Disney Megacorp. Disney later bought all companies after their coup in 2035 to take over the American government with the goal of making monopolies legal again. Now owning everything in the country and with unlimited wealth and power, they installed a faux Democratic Party called the Disneycrats, who elected their Supreme President Princess Moana as their leader. Okay, this sounds ridiculous now that I'm saying, but I don't know. I liked making this story. Okay, the story keeps going. The Supreme Princess ruled the country with an iron fist and eventually made love illegal in 2043 to maintain the Disneycrats Party authoritarian grip on power, thinking that a country without love would be easier to control and forced to buy cute little toys of ponies or whatever. What they failed to consider was that our hero's love was too powerful to be contained by the draconian measures of Moana. The terrible coalition soon formed around these two and their love, calling themselves the Power of Love Party, while others affectionately refer to their members as the Hueys. I don't know. I was trying to think of a name. Like a funny name for a political rival to the Disneycrats. I couldn't think of anything, so I just thought of Power of Love, and I'm like, oh, Huey Lewis in the news. It's kind of dumb. But, okay. The Hueys use love and nonviolent protest to overthrow the evil empire and restore peace and love to the world. After the rebellion was over, the Hueys wished to install Anthony and his wife as their new leaders, but they declined, saying, "Our love is enough. We don't need anything more." And that's the story of how Match.com saved America, the end. And then I have a post-credits scene. Okay, so we see Anthony and his wife, children at their graves. The year is 2062. An eye-patched character, through exposition, tells their children through exposition, we learn that Anthony and his wife decided not to kill. This is a little bit rough, but the story that I'm trying to create is that I don't know why I'm doing this, but so obviously after the Disneycrats were defeated, there was like a Nuremberg type trial or something where they had to decide what to do with these Disneycrats, like these horrible people. And so the Hueys decided, and Anthony and his wife decided, okay, let's not like murder them, let's banish them to Mars. So, okay, because Anthony, they're so empathetic and compassionate, they're like, we can't kill them, let's send them to Mars. Okay. After the war, but instead banish them to Mars. The Disneycrats discovered a nuclear source of energy in Mars's core, which they mined to create an even stronger army than before. After the Hueys created peace for 15 years after the Great War, the Disneycrats announced their unwelcome return with a targeted attack, killing Anthony and his wife with their new super weapon. They believe that killing the source of love and power for the Hueys will leave them vulnerable to a new takeover and a new Disney empire. Would they be right? Would Anthony's children hold the key to humanity's future? Find out next time. I don't know. And then at the end, I put, this is just me, like, this is so embarrassing. Like, I'm bragging about my stupid MASH thing, but, at the end I put, I don't know, lol. I never know what to write for these things. And I put a smiley face. Because sometimes people write that. They put, like, for their bios, they're like, oh, this is so stupid. I never know what to write. And I'm like, come on. You're trying to meet somebody to spend your life with. Put some effort into it. Like, try to write something. I thought it would be kind of funny to put that at the end after I wrote this insane story. Like, I never know what to write for these things. Sorry, how long did it take to talk about that? It's like 10 minutes. Sorry. So, Vault, you can help me write this kind of dystopian future story about love and Disney killing America, and I think I used up my 4,000 characters already, but yeah. I don't know if Gladys will watch this one, but she watched the last one. That was super cool, and she has super amazing news, but I don't want to say because I feel weird, like, saying that, but I think it's like a public thing, and it's happy, so I'm happy. Good for Gladys. She's doing a good job. She has social anxiety like me, and she's doing it. She's doing her life good, and I'm, like, following her example, I guess. And Vault's doing good, too. I'm following Vault's example, too. Thanks. Thanks for watching and encouraging me last week. I didn't mean to, like, undercut your encouragement by being like, oh, I wasn't really that sad, so you don't have to be sorry for me. I was really grateful for the 2 comments I got. I think it was just 2. Vault and Gladys. Last week after I had that kind of hard day was pretty hard. Just experiencing emotions that I never experienced and being weirded out by them and like, what is this? What's this thing in my chest? His heart grew 3 sizes that day. It's weird. So yeah, too long, but see you tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.